Hello and welcome. Today we are doing our once a year AMA. Ask me anything. This is a pretty rare thing that we do here because I think that every single year our perspectives change. And with the research that I've done, with the people that I've spoken to myself 1 year ago compared to now, they seem to be like two different people. Now, I cannot promise I'll get to everyone's question. I have had some sent over to me and I will answer those throughout the show. But please put your questions in all caps or in uppercase so I can see it better. And if you would like to support the channel, you can also place your questions as super chats. I will try my best to answer everything. So let's go ahead and get started. Daniel, thank you so much for the super chat. You start off the episode strong. It says, even though it's a strange world, it's a wonderful place to be. This is so true. Where else would we be? Right? This is an incredible place on this channel. Have it be Shifting the Paradigm, Mysteries with the History, Weekly Strange News, or The Unknown Zone. It goes to show there are endless mysteries here on Earth and beyond that we just can't get enough of, that we're constantly looking at. We're always being exposed to something new. And a big reason to why I have this channel is not only for myself to kind of be on the fast track for research, but also to inspire and motivate others, those in my generation and beyond, because I don't like seeing people stuck on their phones all day, which I will state it is definitely a skill to walk and be on your phone at the same time and not trip or bump into anything. That's a skill that I do not have. But jokes aside, there is so much going on in our skies, in our forests, in old abandoned houses that I think it's so much more important, so much more even entertaining than looking at celebrities and seeing what new outfits they have or what new location that they're at that you and me can't go to and things like this. So with this channel and all the work that is done here, it's to inspire you, to motivate you, and to, sprinkle some enthusiasm in there as well. That's what it's all about. Nature Camp, hey there, how you doing? Thank you so much. It says, what type of Buddhism do you practice and how long have you been a Buddhist? So I practice Mahayana Buddhism and I've been involved in it since I was about 16. So it's been 6 or 7 years now. And for myself, it has really helped me in the aspects of, as many of you know, my regular viewers and listeners, you are aware, and I've spoken about this multiple times, that I used to have a speech impediment as a child, and also verbal dyslexia, along with regular dyslexia as well. And it was through practicing meditation, through being mindful throughout the day, that it's really helped me in a sense overcome these little issues that I had with myself, because it's very difficult to talk on camera, to talk through a podcast when you have these things that are holding you back. And for my entire life, I had this embarrassment with talking in public because of my speech impediment, because of stuttering and not getting my thoughts across properly. And so Buddhism has been an absolute help for that, because you can see it in two ways. You can see it as a religion or as a philosophy. It just depends on you and how you want to look at it. And for myself, I see it as more of as a philosophy aspect, where I use these practices of mindfulness and meditation and treating every single day like a brand new day without looking at the past or looking too far into the future, and only focusing on the now. Now, of course, as many of you know, I am planning on getting an RV and traveling the United States, hitting all the UFO hotspots and paranormal hotspots as soon as I graduate. And that has been my goal since my senior year in high school, which was a question actually sent over to me by Steve. And he wrote, how has your perspective on life changed over the 5 to 10 years in terms of your life goals or purpose and the meaning of life? So that's one. But between you and me, about 5 years ago, I was in high school. I know, kind of crazy, right? So let me flip that question back over to you. Go back to yourself when you were in your late teens and early 20s. Did you have life goals? Did you know the meaning of life or the purpose of why you're here? Now, come back to now, to right now. Do you have life goals? Do you know the meaning of life? And we are coming towards the end of the year, and this is usually when we look at these questions pretty seriously, where we begin to write down what we want to do for the upcoming year, which will be 2023, which is unbelievable. So ask yourselves these questions. What are your goals? How do you perceive your life? What is the purpose of it? And then look back when you were in your late teens and early 20s. It's probably changed over that time frame. But for for these kinds of questions, we need to ask them because they are important to motivate us to persevere with maybe that are with our jobs that we despise or at moments where we can feel kind of worthless, right? Personally, my goals and something that I've been wanting to do since my senior year was getting an RV. So I've been doing absolutely everything I can to save up that money and to take you on the journey with me, traveling across the US, which is a beautiful place to be, and to do all these exciting things that I've had planned for quite some time. And I really know that you're also going to enjoy the content that's going to come in the future. But as for my life's purpose or meaning, it's what I'm doing right now. It's talking to you about these mysteries, getting new people involved, inspiring, motivating, and as I mentioned a little bit earlier, sprinkling a little bit of enthusiasm into everything strange because we live in a strange world. And instead of being buried in our phones, right, like this, we need to look up and keep our eyes on the skies or through the forest or in a haunted location. And that's where the interests are, where the mysteries are. And I want to get you involved in them, just like myself. So hopefully that answered a few questions in one. Jessica says, Christina, how close are you to getting the RV and what equipment have you got already for it? So really planning on getting the RV in 2023. Like it needs to happen by that time. So I guess I would say I'm decently ish kind of close. Um a lot of questions that people have asked me is Christina, when are you going to start your RV GoFundMe? And I will be flat out honest with you because this is an AMA, right? Where I'm just going to be as honest as possible. I get really uncomfortable asking for funds like this. I don't necessarily enjoy doing it. I don't like asking you for things like this. But also, I'm planning out this really intricate type of video so I can really express my vision to you on why we are purchasing this RV. When I say we, I mean you and me, because you are on this journey with me through this channel and the future as well. So I'm still kind of planning stuff out. It will happen at some point. There are other projects ahead of that, but I'm first want to say that I'm so grateful for everyone that has been supporting me, that have been asking me, when are you going to start the funds so I can get involved in it? And I'm so grateful for that. But it'll happen at some point and it probably will come in January. We'll see, but it does make me a little uncomfortable kind of talking about that. And I would like to buy the RV, fingers crossed, in June, which would be really exciting. So right when the summer starts, and I do already have some cameras already, and of course you got to have your very basic things like your GPS locator beacon, walkie-talkies for if you're with others, some cameras. I do have a few actually, and I am planning on getting some more equipment in the near future. We're kind of like building up on that, you and I, but we're getting kind of close, and I'm so excited. I am pretty darn excited for that one. UAP says, do you feel you know more or less about the phenomenon after 2 years? This is a great question. And you hear it a lot from researchers, especially those that have been in the field less than 5 years, I would say. And it's that exactly what you're saying, but in a statement versus a question, which would be, I feel that ever since I've entered the field, I know less than what I expected to know. That kind of format, right? And you're absolutely right. And people that have said this are absolutely right. When I first started, I thought things were very black and white, nuts and bolts. That's it. Super easy. How come no one has solved the mystery yet? Come on, guys. And as I got knee deep into the research, I began to realize how one convoluted it is, how much disinformation there is, but also how intense and how many moving parts there are. In one question that I constantly ask on Shifting the Paradigm, and for those that don't know what that show is, it's where I interview UFO researchers and enthusiasts, or those in the paranormal, those that are also cryptid researchers as well. And we go into depth on their background and their research. But one question I always ask, no matter what kind of field they look into, is, do you believe there is a convergence between the UFO phenomenon and the paranormal? And probably about 99% of people that I ask will say yes. And that's what makes this phenomenon so much more complex than your other fields of research. It's because if you look at one thing, all these other doors are going to open, or as we say in this field, rabbit holes. You're going to jump through more rabbit holes. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. And another question that was sent to me via email, and we're going to kind of get into that, is how do you think more people can get involved into this, regardless of people's background, their faith, their culture, and things like this? And I think that when we stop using all of this jargon amongst our community, when we start being more compassionate to the new people jumping into the field, because we so quickly judge people when they don't know one fact, or they get a fact wrong, have it be online or through something like this as well. And we don't express our compassion that, hey, we were once in their position, where we were brand new, where you didn't know what Roswell was, why it's so significant. And while us in the field were like, oh, Roswell again? Really? Oh, give me a break. There are still so many new people that are like, what? Roswell? I don't know anything about this, but gosh darn, am I fascinated with it? And while it's while we can't make this into a more comical conversation, it's when we place ourselves in their position that can get more people involved. When we make this information bite-sized versus so complex, because it can be overwhelming. It absolutely can be. Texas Jam, thank you so much for the super chat. Jonacide said, who is your favorite mod? You're all my favorite mods. All of you. Right? Because all of my children are my favorite. Texas Jelly, I know I said jam. Why can't it be jam and jelly? Right? You can never go wrong. They're both delicious, but thank you so much. Jessica, thank you as well. It says, can't wait for you to hit the road, and hopefully this gets you a little closer. You have everyone that is watching this live, everyone that likes these videos or listens to these podcasts and shares it with others, and those that can support financially, you have no idea how much that means to me. And I know that you hear that a lot and you're like, yeah, sure, whatever. But you are making my dreams come true. And I want to do the same for you, making these mysteries that much more interesting, but also easy to follow as well. So I really do want to say thank you. Dave says, where do you see yourself 1 year from now? On the road, baby. That's where I see myself, with Puck in the driver's seat, preferably. That would be fantastic, because I like driving. I like driving, but sometimes you gotta have like a little break, you know? So we're gonna wait to get a Puck a license, and we're gonna be on the road in a year. I cannot wait. JG says, "Have you ever met Linda Moulton Howe?" I have not. I've actually never met anyone in the field. Absolutely nobody. Never been to a conference, never been to a meeting, never been to like a real life coffee and chat kind of thing. Because I am still in university, my schedule is super tight, along with having a full time job as well. I've never even met Jimmy Church. While we've done Mysteries with a History for a year and a little bit now, I've never met him in person, and I'm very dedicated to my education. So, but things will change in 2023. I've even this is between you and me because once again, this is an AMA and I'm going to share things honestly with you. I have turned down going on TV shows. Even like which is it might kind of shock people, the ones that I've been invited to, but there've been a handful of people are like, "Oh, come on to this TV show." And I say, "I'm sorry. My education is the most important thing, and I simply can't go because my schedule is too tight." And things might change in the near future, but there's a handful that I'm like, "I can't do it. Sorry." Same with conferences. I've been invited to speak at conferences as well, which I'm very humbled and I'm very grateful for that. And I've also declined those invitations, stating, "I'm sorry, I can't go to them. I'm too busy with school." But I also don't see myself as a speaker, right? Being on stage with a mic and saying, "Well, here's what we're going to be covering today." Because just like you, I'm still learning. I have absolutely no authority in these conversations. All I want to do is learn and bring the knowledge that I have to you. But I'm not here to be on a stage and be like, "And then here we go. Here is this conversation that we're having right now." Kind of like the WWE. That'd be kind of fun though. But no, that's not for me. Um, Daz says, "What made you really get into this field? Was it a particular event or reported sighting?" Great question. So, as soon as I moved far away from home to enter university, I had a lot of free time on my hands. That doesn't exist anymore. Like what is sleep, really? But what got me interested in this was first off my father watching The Twilight Zone, best TV show on the planet, right next to SpongeBob, like before 2013. Great. But when I had all this free time, I thought, I want to look at UFO videos, UFO sightings, and analyze them, put them through a program, and place it back onto YouTube to allow people to come up with their own conclusions on what they think this object may be. That kind of progressed into my very first show being Shifting the Paradigm, which was only focused originally on interviewing UFO researchers and enthusiasts. That has changed, and you will notice that on the channel. Also, talking to paranormal investigators and also cryptid researchers as well. And we even had monster expert Emily Zarka, which was fascinating. So, we get all these different people talking to them about what they specialize in. But what really, really got me started into this was I had a lot of free time. I was fascinated with this conversation, and I would attempt to bring this conversation to my peers on campus at 8 a.m. And I'm like, "Hey, what do you think about UFOs?" They look at me, they look at their watch, look at me again, and they're like, "Christina, it is 8 a.m. I haven't had coffee yet. We are not having this conversation. And if we're ever going to have this conversation, we're going to be under some kind of substance." And I was like, "No, no, I want to have this conversation right here, right now. What do you think about it?" And I was pretty disappointed on people not wanting to engage with me in this. Now, with my generation, it's not a question if extraterrestrials exist. We now have science to back that up. We now have mathematics to back that up. But that's kind of as far as that interest goes, right? Are we alone? Nah, no, of course we're not. Well, what do you know about extraterrestrials? Nothing really, except that they're really cool. And I'm like, okay. But with math and science, they predict that extraterrestrials exist. They don't prove that they exist, but that they predict it. Now, those that have had their own experiences would say different. They're like, no, they exist. My experience proves that. And there are even a few scientists and those that have looked into this that have also had their own experiences, but that are kind of reluctant to share. And hey, I respect that. Stir says, "Hi, Christina. How do you feel about AI and how it will impact the future of the human race?" We're already dealing with AI right now. And I mean, look at, Siri is a good example of this, or iHome, iHouse, whatever that is. And we're also dealing with AI art as well. So when we are looking at AI, which once again we're already looking at now, I I don't know. I've seen a lot of sci-fi movies. They put it in a very negative light, but I think that we also need to remain somewhat open-minded to this conversation. Of course, we have Amica, we have Sophia, there's a few others, and they've had their own few slip-ups which are pretty terrifying. If you look at some of the things that they've said that practically went viral, but overall, the reason for AI, if you speak to those that have created, for example, Amica or Sophia, it is to help the human race in some way. But I'm going to turn that back on you. What do you think about it? Let me know in the live chat. Let me know in the comments what you think about AI. It's very interesting, really. Let me get to the next one. Eddie, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, question previously submitted. I'm too lazy to retype. Let me see if I can find it. And I will look for that one. Hold on. But it doesn't look like I can see it. If you can just put it in the live chat, I will get to that one. So thank you so much. Spiral says, do you know anything about the Skinny Bob alien footage? I don't. All I know about Skinny Bob is that allegedly he likes strawberry milkshakes, which who doesn't? Chick-fil-A has the best strawberry milkshakes on the planet. No one can prove me wrong. Those are amazing. With a little cherry, but no whipped cream for me. I'm gonna pass on that. Whipped cream, it just tastes like, because it is whipped milk. I don't really care for it. Kurt says, how did you get on the Fade to Black team and radio? So I am not on the Fade to Black team at all. That is that is not a thing. But I got on KUNX through an invite from Race Hobbs, the programmer of the station, KUNX Talk Radio to be specific. And as when it comes to like Fade to Black and being a guest, Jimmy had seen some of my work and he wanted to get to know more about my interest in the field. But actually, how that friendship started, and I mentioned this a few times on the show, was because of Micah Hanks from the Debrief Media. I had Micah on the show at some point, and Jimmy had contacted either me or Micah, and he says, "Hey, send me the invite." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, Jimmy Church," because I had been a fan of his show years prior, and that's kind of how our friendship started, and how he ended up becoming a co-host for Mysteries with a History. Pretty interesting. Kevin says, "Are you ever going to share with your family about your channel?" Let me just take a sip of tea. Hold on. Like many of those who want to impress their children, or if you remember back when you were a child, you in some way wanted to say, "Hey, look what I've done. It's really cool." But the biggest thing, I meant to impress parents, not impress children, right? But for myself, I come from a very strict Latin household. So for them and for myself, education is the most important thing. And there should be absolutely no distractions when it comes to my education. But as you can tell, this is probably the biggest distraction that I could ever have, creating all of this content that I do on this channel. So if I were to tell them, they would be absolutely furious with me, but they would also end up being probably my biggest cheerleaders. I'm not planning on telling them until after I get my diploma right in my hand. I'll be like, hey guys, check this out. And then also, I have something really important to tell you. That's probably how it would go. And they would first hit me with their slippers, and then afterward they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you're so great. I'm glad that you're doing what you're doing." So they'll know at some point, just not yet. Steve says, "You're a natural. What TV shows did you turn down?" I can't say that. I know it. Like it seems like a little teaser, but I can't get that information. But just know that TV shows that you are aware of, they have approached me and I have declined those invitations. But I did state, hey, as soon as I graduate, if you still need someone, just give me a call, send me an email. Ray says, if you roll through Idaho, I promise to fill your tank and pay for your lunch and or dinner. That wasn't a question, but thank you so much. That's very nice. SDK says, Christina, have you ever thought about the UAP phenomenon maybe being us from the future? So there are those that have researched this aspect of UAPs. And one of the more famous stories about it potentially being us from the future is the Rendlesham Forest incident, where you have Jim Peniston who says that he got a download after he touched the craft and he ended up writing binary code, and it seemed to be something, it seemed to be a message from the future. It is a possibility. Now, is that the case for all of them? I don't think so. We cannot place all of our eggs in one basket and state that all the UAP that we're seeing, all the UFOs that we're seeing are us from the future, or they're all interdimensionals, or they're all nuts and bolts. I don't think that's the case. It's the same thing as stating, is an ant and an elephant the same? No, they are completely different. How they perceive the world is different. How they perceive potentially time is even different, right? Because their lifespans and things like this. So they're not the same. The same thing that not all UAP could possibly be the same. But it's a possibility that some of them could be us from the future, but there isn't enough evidence to state that is the case. And Dan Sass says, can you describe the best or most memorable meditation mindfulness session you experienced? Every day is the best, right? Because I meditate about 3 times a day as soon as I wake up, at noon, and each night right before bed. This really helps me schedule out my days, especially because they are so jam-packed. Actually, people are like, Christina, how are you so organized? My days are scheduled by the hour. Yeah, lunch, breakfast, dinner, yeah, they're all scheduled to the hour, along with these meditation sessions and all the research and work that I do for this channel, but also the work I do outside in the real world as well. So it is through meditation that has really helped me balance everything. So they've all been really profound and really great mindfulness sessions. Brian says, would you shout out to my kids who are watching, Dee and Michael? Hi there. Hi, Dee and Michael. Logan says, wow, full-time job and doing university and the channel. I know it's a lot, but as you know, I am saving up as much as I can to get an RV and making those dreams come true. So sacrificing a few years of sleep, I think in the long run is definitely worth it, because I have my eyes on the prize, and that is the RV, so that I can take you on the journey with me. Jessica says, have you watched Into the Vortex yet? Of course I have. Absolutely fantastic show with the host Jimmy Church, who and that show is now on Gaia. For those that haven't seen it, take a look at it. It is fantastic. Fizz says, how do you find Will Smith in a snowstorm? Look for the Fresh Prince. That's funny. If I were to read it, it wouldn't make sense. Because I read it out loud, that's actually hilarious. So Cal says, thoughts on swamp gas? Makes my eyes roll like this. Give me a break. But sometimes it could be the case. I don't know. Neurostream, thank you so much for the super sticker as well. I do deeply appreciate that. Hopefully, you are enjoying this AMA that we only do once a year, where you can ask any questions that you have. If you do have any questions, please place them in all uppercase so that I can see them better than just in all lowercase. Charles says, what do you think the majority of our visitors are? ET, time travelers, robots, AI, all of the above. All of the above. I don't think it's just the majority is one type. I think that it's all of them. Now, if we look at how we have gone to the moon, gone to Mars, and sending these probes out farther into space, we sent probes, we sent drones, right? Well, rovers, and to Mars specifically and to the moon. But obviously, we're going to send robots first or technology before we send ourselves, because we don't understand those environments to a certainty yet, right? So why can't other extraterrestrials do the exact same? What if some of the UFOs that we're looking at are merely just drones? For instance, Tic Tacs, they're kind of small, right? Somewhat. Maybe a little too small for a being to be. I don't know, they're like really small beings, but also the maneuvers that it has, that it does, it looks pretty darn dangerous, at least for people like you and me. So what if they're just merely drones collecting data? That's what we would do. Why wouldn't they do the same? But I think it's all of the above. ET could possibly be time travelers, which would be absolutely amazing to get to speak with them. Robots and AI, all of the above. Oh, excuse me. We're covering a lot today. Deranged says, how did you get on Creepy Little Book? So, for those I don't know, Creepy Little Book is run by Pete McCarthy. If you haven't seen his channel, go take a look. He is a fantastic storyteller. I love the way he tells stories. He actually found me originally, and he had me on the show, and we spoke about, I think, extraterrestrials in the past through history, and it was really awesome. And then ever since then, I was like, Pete, come over to my show. And so I've had him on a few times on shifting the paradigm, and that's kind of how it started. Hopefully that kind of answered your question. Neurostream, thank you so much. I do appreciate that. Nature Cam says, even Christina is not safe from LA chancletas. That's true. You're never safe from the sandals, the chancletas. It's always dangerous. Thank you so much. Zenza says, when you tell your parents about your paranormal shows, let us know how long after their head explode that they make it back to Earth. I definitely will let you know. I don't know what I'm gonna do, but we're gonna see how their reaction goes, and honestly hope for the best. Tyler says, which mysterious case do you find the most fascinating? I will tell you, and this is one that I've mentioned a few times on platforms that have interviewed me, but as for many of you know on this channel, I don't usually share my opinions or like my favorite cases for the most part. Sometimes I do, but I don't. So I'm really happy that you asked this question. My favorite case of all time. Hopefully you have your ears perked up and maybe you'll know this case, but it is the Colares, Brazil incident in 1977. How many of you are familiar with this case? It is one that blows my mind every single time I look at it. Just a super quick summary. It is a case that it was a 6-month flap, meaning it happened every single day for 6 months between 7 and 8 p.m. Every single day. And people in this very small fishing town in Colares, Brazil, they would notice these beams of light coming down and they would terrorize the townsfolk. where if this beam of light touched you, it was as if it would pierce your skin. And the locals ended up calling these entities chupa chupa because they believed it was sucking their blood out. And this is a terrifying story for those that had to encounter this, because for 6 entire months, they were mortified. The mayor calls the capital, Brasilia. They say, hey, bring over your military. And the locals thought they were going to bring weapons and cannons and things to protect them. But instead, they brought papers, pencils, and cameras, and that's it. And they did all this documentation. Actually, a lot of this information has been released through FOIA. You can find it at the Black Vault, where you can read thousands of witness testimonies, where you can see a handful of drawings that were created by the military at that time. You even have a video testimony of the captain of the operation called Aprecial Plato, and his name is Captain Urangue Lima. And he spoke to the UFO magazine in Brazil in 1997, I believe, exactly 20 years after the operation, Operação Plato. And he tells his encounter. Not only did he witness UFOs consistently, but he also had a pretty darn close encounter as well. If you do want to hear the story in detail, I did talk about it on Mysteries with a History. It's called Colares Brazil, and Jimmy and I go into detail on that case because it is fascinating. It's one of my absolute favorites. Jessica says, have you watched the new season of Ancient Civilizations on the Gaia channel? I have not. I have very little time to watch television just because of my education and because of these shows that require so much research. But when I get a free moment, I will take a look at it because it sounds interesting. I'm down. Brian says, Christina, great show as always. So, question, Jimmy Church left KUNXDB. Any thoughts on why? To my knowledge, he has not. His shows are still on KUNX, but he is changing his format. That is what I know. He did do a special announcement on that on his channel, and he does want to start. He does want to have a new start for 2023, which I think is a great idea. It's always nice to change things up, and this channel will also see some changes in 2023 as well. But his show still does go out on KUNX streaming and affiliates. That should have answered your question. Brian says, do you plan to visit the Bermuda Triangle? I don't think the RV will take me there unless like also a boat, which would be so cool. But at this point in time, if I was given the opportunity, maybe. But more than anything, I would love to go to the Bridgewater Triangle, where we get pukwudgies. For those that don't know what pukwudgies are, they are these little mischievous goblins that will hurt you. But the name pukwudgie just sounds so cute and harmless, so much so that I have a plushie sitting on my microphone to show how much I love the name pukwudgie. They're just so cute. So if I were to go to the Bridgewater Triangle, I would love to see this mythical creature. That'd be fantastic. That'd be like the highlight of my life right there. But what's your favorite cryptid? That's an open question for everyone in the chat. Dave says, do you plan on covering the Chris Bledsoe experience at some point? What do you make of it? I actually don't know enough about it. Like I know the basic story, but not enough. But I don't know that there are two divided camps on it. Like it's kind of a controversial thing, right? To my knowledge. But I will look into it into the future. In the future for sure. John Asai says, what are your thoughts on Jason Quit and why everything is his fault? No clue. I'm assuming that's a Jimmy Church and Jason Quit joke, but I'm not too familiar with it. Why he thinks everything is his fault, but I find that hilarious. Cliff said, Could bodies have evolved from our consciousness? That's an interesting question. And this is when we look at the UFO phenomenon, there's also, you have the aspect of science, of history, of experiences, and also of the consciousness aspect as well. But for myself, coming from a Buddhist aspect, it's believed that we live in this realm of samsara, the realm of suffering, where there are the basic pieces of information that suffering exists in everyone's life. The causes of suffering are greed, anger, and ignorance. Um, and suffering can be you're able to enter nirvana following the eightfold path. But in the samsara realm, it's the realm of illusion and also the learning through suffering as well. So we are on this wheel of rebirth and a cycle of reincarnation, and with each life we are supposed to grow wiser until you break that cycle through enlightenment. So could bodies have evolved from our consciousness? Well, our bodies could have evolved through this constant cycle of rebirth, where through your karma, it's where you're able to create a body in your next life. Hopefully that kind of answered your question, but that's just kind of more of a opinion than a fact. Pino says, "Hey Christina, do you think that within 10 years ET post disclosure and med beds will be available?" I sure do hope so. That'd be fantastic. But do I know if that will be the case? No. However, I do expect that at least in 10 years' time, we will get witness hearings in Congress, and that we will be getting more UFO reports released by the Pentagon as we have been promised to get, but in 10 years' time, hopefully more frequently, and maybe even the possibility of a president talking about extraterrestrials on public television. That's kind of where I would hope to see in 10 years, but I guess we'll only find out the hard way. Eddie says, and thank you so much for the super chat. It says, "What soldier or former cop UAP encounter who's still alive would you recommend for me to interview for an article?" I'll have to think about that one, Eddie, but email me with that same question and I will get back to you. My email is christina@strangeparadigms.com. And as soon as you send that over, I will send some people that I can recommend to you. Lucky Stone says, "Have you ever visited the Bridgewater Triangle? Do you plan to?" I have never been. I have done 2 shows on the topic, and as soon as that RV comes to me, right, I'll definitely be visiting that location because it's a very strange place. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's like Skinwalker Ranch on steroids. Like, it is a crazy location with UFO encounters, strange cryptids, ghostly apparitions, and so much more that I wish it was more popular. I wish more people knew about it, but it is an absolute crazy location that is in Massachusetts. Jonaside says, "Christina, what story, case, conspiracy do you absolutely do not believe?" That's an interesting question. I think I'm open-minded to all possibilities. There isn't one, at least off of the top of my head, that I think does absolutely I do not believe. I'm usually on the fence with a lot of these cases. Let me think about that one. And if I think of something, I'll get back to you, 'cause that's an interesting question. SoCal says, "What's your theory on missing 411 cases?" So Jimmy and I actually did a show about the missing not too long ago, and a lot of the cases that we covered were actually in regards to missing 411. I have been a listener to Dave Paulides and also a fan for quite some time, reading his books, watching his documentaries, and also listening to his and watching his YouTube channel as well. So he's covered hundreds, if not thousands of cases. And I think that the research that he's doing is admirable. It's very thorough, well done work. And if given the opportunity, I would like to meet him in person and to ask him some questions for sure. But as for like the disappearances themselves, I in some respects I am on the fence. I mean, like, what is behind those disappearances? Those are the questions that we need to ask. While these might be absolutely fascinating stories, while good research might be done, what is behind those disappearances? The 2% of those strange disappearances. Because in my opinion, I think it's a multitude of things. I mean, it has to be, right? I don't think there is one thing behind them all. But I do believe that there are like several mysteries and anomalous cases behind some of them. At least I would assume so, right? Because there are just some details that are unexplainable. Could it be portals or UFOs or Bigfoot or terrible murderers? I mean, this is an ongoing mystery and has been for a very long time. Or are people just getting lost? Thousands upon thousands of people are just getting lost, and that's it. I mean, is it all just a like a mundane thing? I don't think so. I think a percentage, yes, there probably a high percentage. They are explainable disappearances, but not all of them. I don't think so. Especially with all the mysteries that we've covered here on this channel. I don't think so. Jason says, "Will you cover Oak Island?" We've Jimmy and I have touched on it. I can't remember for what episode. It was recently too. But for the most part, that location is just a big money pit. It's a People have thrown money into looking for this treasure on Oak Island. The TV show has how many seasons? I don't even know how many seasons. I've never even watched the TV show, but it goes to show that people do have an interest in it, that it's a ginormous money pit. No one has found the treasure yet. So, will I cover it? Maybe at some point, but I know that we did touch on it, just barely. Total Match says South America gets tons of sightings and strange cases. They absolutely do. They, sorry, my eye got really itchy. But South America does have some interesting cases. I wish that they were more well documented or at least covered more. But um, we know that Varginha, Brazil is a very interesting case. Colares, Brazil, another fascinating case. And it seems that parts of Chile have some interesting sightings as well. But I will have to do more research. Oh, and Peru. Can't forget Peru. Really crazy place. Mark says, "Do you have any favorite Australian UFO cases besides Westwall?" Oh, the disappearance of Frederick Valentich, crazy case. That was where a pilot disappeared. But a while ago, I interviewed Ben Hurl. He is an Australian researcher, and he spoke about one crazy case. And I think I'm just gonna touch on it because I don't remember all the details. But he mentioned on Shifting the Paradigm. If you do want to see it, it is on my channel. He spoke about how this one car was chased by a Yowie, which is what Australians call Bigfoot, and it lifted their car from the back and then dropped it. And those people sped so fast back home, but they truly believe that they were being chased by a Yowie. That story is insane. Now, I am not mentioning all the details because I interviewed him so long ago now, but if you do want to see it, Ben Hurl, you will just type that in and you will find it on my channel. It is a crazy story, and he touches on several wild Bigfoot stories that happened in Australia. Total Match says, "Do you think Bob Lazar is legit?" I've done 2 shows on Bob Lazar back to back, one with Jimmy and I, and then one with Richard Dolan, Jimmy, and myself. And while I have done as much research as I can, I'm still I'm still on the fence with him and his story. I think that there's a lot of compelling, interesting information, but there's also a good handful that go against him as well. So it is really difficult to decipher if I think he's legit or not. Hopefully that answers your question, Total Match. Walkerdale. First off, I want to say thank you everyone for these really interesting questions. Hopefully you are answering along with me, that even though these are I'm the one answering them, I hope that you're also answering them either in your mind or in the comments as well, because I want to hear what you have to say. Walkerdale says, "Hi, Christina. Have you ever taken serious interest in the phenomenon? Do you think in turn the phenomenon has taken an interest in you?" Interesting question. I would say no. I don't think so, at least. But yes, I have taken a very serious interest in the phenomenon, but do I think it has an interest in me? I don't think so. At least I hope not. I don't I'm in this field, yeah. No. But you know what? Maybe they're waiting for me to hit the road. Literally. Also, like, hit it with the hammer, but also with an RV. James says, "Do you plan to visit Utah with Skinwalker Ranch and Dugway, which is thought to be the new Area 51?" Absolutely. Utah and the Uinta Basin is going to be one of my very first places that I'm going to stop at. I already have it mapped out. I've already been invited to Skinwalker Ranch. So, you know, you know I'm going there. I am so excited because it'll be one of my very first stops. Oh, I- I'm I'm too excited. But as for Dugway, I don't think I will be visiting that because I'm not interested in getting near a military installation at all. Not, it's not for me. Robert, hi Robert, how are you doing? How's everything going for you? Robert says, "Do you believe in ESP?" Interesting question. I've done a show on it with Jimmy Church. Probably like one of the very first episodes that we did together on Mysteries with a History. There's a lot of compelling evidence on that. We know that Russell Targ was very interested in this. He was funded by the CIA to do things such as remote viewing and also doing more research onto ESP. So I think it's a possibility. I think that if you're able to tap into the 90 other percent of your brain, because apparently we only use about 10%, that ESP is a possibility. I am just waiting for everyone to learn telepathy. That would be so fantastic versus like having to say something and then attempt to like put a sentence together in your mind and then hopefully having the receiver understand what you said. With telepathy, it is just so much easier. There is no room to not understand what the person is saying. So I am waiting for the day that all of us know telepathy. That'd be so freaking awesome. However, going into a more serious aspect, in Buddhism, ESP exists. And there is even a level that you can reach where you become what is called an arhat, and where you have like all of these powers open up to you, but you are forbidden. You are forbidden on revealing that fact that you are like Superman. Okay. And it has a lot to do with not allowing ego to get involved. Charles says, what's your take on breakaway civilizations? I'm not too familiar with that aspect of the phenomenon just yet, just because, as I had mentioned at the beginning of today's show, there is so much that's involved in this topic. There are so many moving parts that I haven't looked into it too much. I believe that it could be a thing, and I know Richard Dolan has done extensive work on that as well, but I haven't looked into it closely enough to have an opinion on that one. Dave says, "What is your dream RV?" One that drives. Yeah, that's my dream RV. I have very little criteria on what I want, but it needs to have a washer and dryer. That's a big one, and good storage place. And I want to have a desk area too where I can work, like what we're doing right here, right now, and doing all the research. And I also want to get cameras installed as well. Because it is going to be a research vehicle more than anything else. So I can kind of like monitor from outside and the skies and things like this, but also for security as well, right? Can better to have both than nothing. But overall, I have very little criteria on my dream RV. I just want it to work. Most important part. Daz says, "Can you see yourself going abroad on your journey of UFO discovery after America?" Why not? The sky is the limit. And I am all for trying new foods. I will try any food once as long as it doesn't have pickles. I'm in. I'm down. Joel says, "Have you ever seen a UFO?" I have. When I went on a trip to India, I did see a UFO that looked somewhat nuts and bolts, somewhat organic. I don't actually like telling the story, I'll be absolutely honest with you, just because it was so personal. And even to this day, while it happened many years ago, I still haven't fully wrapped my head around it. So, I did actually go into detail on this story on the Singularity Lab with Michael Mataluni. That's probably the only time I ever went into detail on my sighting. While I've been asked multiple times, I just touch on it and then I avoid the question because when you have a UFO sighting, for many people, it's very personal. The amount of people that have sightings that haven't spoken about it is a pretty high percentage, I'm assuming, right? Um, because it's hard to explain, especially when you don't really know what you saw or what exactly happened. Hyde says, "When is Christina going back to Loch Ness and who will she take on her team?" Well, if I end up traveling abroad, it would be really cool to go back to see Nessie or potentially see Nessie. That'd be fantastic. For those that don't know, I used to live in Ireland when I was about 5 years old. I did go to Scotland on a trip with my father, and I said, we have to go see Nessie. That we have to. So I brought like my tiny little camera, ready to take pictures. And that was the first time I ever tried oysters. I'm going to tell you that story right now. So, my dad and I were on the shore, ready to go see Nessie, and I'm so happy that he put up with me and my imagination at that time because it was vast. And then there's this nice Scottish man, and I'm not even going to bother doing a Scottish accent because it sounds so bad. But he's like, "Hey, lassies, come over here and come into my boat and have some oysters with me." Are you going to take a stranger's invitation? Well, if you're my dad, yes, absolutely. So we go into this man's boat and he offers us some oysters. And I never had one because I was 5 and I will never consume those again. You know what? They're for some people, they are not for me. They are slimy and gritty at the exact same time. No. But I will never forget that experience because of the oysters and because of wanting to see the Loch Ness monster. Maka says, "What is the end all be all of ramen recipes?" Maka's asking the right questions here. Okay. So, while I do love this channel and inspiring you and all the mysteries involved here, many of you also know how much I love ramen. Like, ramen is a special place in my heart. Like, my heart is big, okay? Ramen takes up half of it. It's so freaking good. My end all be all ramen recipe is all of the above. I love all ramen. Actually, one of the questions sent over to me, and I want to find out who that person was and give him credit, was Retro Master. And he asked, what's your favorite brand of ramen? I love them all. I do not discriminate as long as it's not shrimp flavored. I like shrimp in ramen, don't get me wrong, but shrimp flavored ramen, no, it's not going to cut it for me. But as I think a really important ingredient is chives, soy sauce. I do love some sriracha, but the ones that have the seeds in it, so important to me. Amazing. But all of the ramen recipes, they're all delicious. I will try them all. Logan, thank you so much for being a YouTube member and supporting the channel and the RV Fund. Carl says, what is your favorite UFO move? Do you mean movie? Or is it move? I don't know. I also enjoy your partnership with church. Thank you, Carl. Now, if it comes to a UFO movie, you could never go wrong with Close Encounters. That's like probably one of the best movies. But one that I think is great for kids, because that's kind of how I got started in all of this, was through Invader Zim. That's such a good cartoon. Probably one of my favorites regarding the mystery, at least as a child. Of course, when you become an adult, people just expect you to mature and be like, well, now you gotta like a more of an adult type movie when you're into UFOs. And while again, Close Encounters is a fantastic one, Invader Zim is where it's at. It's so good. I used to have like t-shirts of it. Ah, brings back my childhood. Let me drink some. Great questions, everyone. I was a bit nervous for today, I'll be honest with you, but I think it's going well, and hopefully you're enjoying these answers as well. Okay. Oh, Dave says, I would love to see you visit Chris Bledsoe. Well, as I had mentioned, I'm not too familiar with the story, but I will look more into it for sure. Michelle says, I'm going to miss being in your stream after Christmas. Why? Where are you going? Where are you going, Michelle? Don't just leave me hanging like that. Daz says, if you met an alien and could ask one question, what would it be? Okay, this is actually a question that was sent to me via email, and I wrote a plausible answer for that. But I think one of the biggest questions that I would like to ask them is there a God or a creator of everything? That's what I would like to ask. And I think what a lot of people would like to ask as well. Or like one that you know for sure exists. That's what I would like to ask them. I would like to mention that any questions that you have, do put them in all caps, and I will try to answer as much as possible. But there's so much to cover. So we're gonna try to go through all of them. But also, if you want to support the channel, you can do super chats as well. Thank you so much. Robert says, "Hey Christina, when do you graduate?" 2023, baby. I am so excited. At least, hopefully by that time. That's like kind of like the time I'm supposed to, but and the time that I will. Probably by the end of the summer is like the target graduation, which is really close. I can just smell the freedom. I can just smell that sheet of paper, the diploma right in my hands. It's gonna be fantastic. Grant says, hey Christina, if you had to give up ramen for a new UAP video from the USG, would you do it? Why are you making me choose, Grant? Why are you doing that to me? No, I wouldn't. I will never give up ramen. Never. Philip says, do you plan to visit the Yakima UFO microcosm in Washington State that Dr. J. Allen Hynek's Coup UFO published a book about? I would absolutely go. Hopefully I read that correctly. It everything seemed kind of whack for me, at least. But yes, I would love to check that place out. 100%. I'm gonna go anywhere. I'm gonna go everywhere. Sky's the limit. It would be so cool if, like, for those that have seen the movie Spaceballs, written by Mel Brooks, the main character, he had an RV that could also fly through space. That's my dream RV right there. That's what I want. And the directed by Mel Brooks, but the lead character was Lone Star, and he had an RV that went through space. Ah, that's my dream right there. Mecca says, "Have you experienced ESP?" No, I have not. Daniel says, "Hello, Christina." Hi, Daniel. What are your favorite sci-fi series or sci-fi movies and why? Gosh, there's so many good ones. Can I get back to you on that one? Like, there's so many good ones. Okay, you're putting me on the spot. I'll have to say Fringe is, I mean, spectacular. Love Fringe. Probably one of my favorites. I know there's a bunch more, but that's the first one that comes to mind. Have you seen Fringe? I recommend it to everyone. It's so good. One of my favorites. And Dan says, I know I'm not saying that right, but that's how I'm reading it in here. And Dan says, for the Virginia incident, what's your take on the disclosure? And I'm like right now reading those letters, dyslexia is kicking in, and I know that if I pronounce it, it's going to be all wrong. I'm just seeing like lines, but I need to look more into that one, on that disclosure in particular. I think one of my favorite scenes in the documentary, to be particular, The Moment of Contact, directed by James Fox, was when he spoke to Carlos de Sousa, where he witnessed the UFO crash, and James was able to speak to him and to try and find the location of where the UFO crashed. James mentioned on Shifting the Paradigm, which he didn't mention in the movie and in the documentary, and that was, it took them hours to find this location. James was almost like thinking to himself, does Carlos even know where this location is? Like, what's going on? Maybe he forgot, or maybe he didn't see this actually happen. But after they flew the drone up, they were able to see a landmark, which was a White House. And the White House, the UFO crashed right next to it. Well, after that happened, he's breaking in tears. James is in tears as well. And it was one of the most profound scenes in the entire documentary, in my opinion. And I think that piece of footage in the video was phenomenal. Loved it. Derek says, do you think aliens know about this life and the afterlife? That's a pretty broad question right there, Derek. And I think that maybe for some civilizations, it could be very possible. Those that are far more advanced than ourselves, there are those that have had encounters that believe that they're able to traverse through the fourth, fifth, and other dimensions. And maybe those types of entities are able to know about life after death, or about the answers of life. But if we're looking at these more nuts and bolt UFOs, that might not be the case. We can't place all of our eggs in one basket. So I think that for some, it's possible. For others, probably not so much. Edward says, hey, Christina, have you looked into Billy Edward Myers UFO case? What are your thoughts on why the UFO community don't talk about it? I'm actually not familiar with the case. For those that are listening that are new to this channel, I've only been researching this topic for about 2.5-ish years, and there are surprisingly so many UFO cases. It's truly unbelievable. So I haven't looked at that one in particular. I will write that down and I will look into that, because I didn't know. Tyler says, do you plan on eventually documenting overseas places as well? I'm surprised by the amount of people that want to see me to go overseas. I think that if the option presents itself, Maybe I'll go overseas, but for the most part, I am only focusing on the United States. But in the future, in the far future, we'll see what happens. Derange says, what is your views on EVPs? For those that don't know what EVPs are, they are electronic voice phenomena, and that a lot of paranormal investigators can just use their hand dandy recorder. They ask a question and they get something back. I think that there is so much evidence out there that maybe some of it is false, some of it could be real. I have I have one that I just purchased like a few months ago now, and I haven't officially used it just yet, but I would like to put it into practice, see if it really does work or to see what I do capture, which, as you know, when I get the RV, you'll be able to see that as well in real time. So I have high hopes for it. I think it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens with using an EVP recorder. And I think that for the most part, a lot of them could be legitimate, while some of them are probably fake. Doobie Bruh says, will we have contact that is seen by the masses of the world in our lifetime? I sure do hope so. Come, I mean, I really do hope so. I would love to see another Phoenix Light that happened in 1997. That would be fantastic, especially with the cameras and the phones that we have now to record this information, but who knows? We won't know until it happens. It's really unfortunate to say. I would hope that we get to see it in our lifetime, but hey, who knows? Maybe we scare the aliens away. Maybe we're just too scary. Our species. Look, we have a lot of issues. We do. If we can't get along with our own species, how do they expect us to get along with them as well? Come on. Logan says, which of the conspiracies about the moon you find possible? It's hollow, it's a spaceship Death Star, or bases on the moon told NASA to stay away? That's an interesting one. All of them are like okay, like kind of weird, but I need to look more into that to have an opinion. We have done a show on the moon with Jimmy and I. I think that's the one where like my internet totally crashed and that was a horrible experience. And so while I have done research on it, I would have to do more to give you an opinion on that. But it is fascinating, I will say. Eddie says, what's your message to people who've had experiences but haven't told anyone? Don't feel pressured to have to tell people your experience. But I will state this. When you do share it with those that you trust or a community that you feel comfortable in, it's going to be a weight off of your shoulders. I've learned that one from personal experience. For quite some time, I held on to my story. When I shared it with one or two people, it helped me rationalize some of it, but definitely not all of it. I still don't know what happened. But you also have to have thick skin as well, because you're going to get a lot of people that state that, oh, you're a liar, oh, you're this. And because there will be some savage criticism, there will be trolls out there. So make sure that if you share it with those that you trust. But don't feel pressured to share it if you don't want to. Nature Camp, thank you so much. It says, do you have a fave UAP book? So one that I keep coming to time and time again from my research, and I think one that is a really fantastic book for those just starting into this journey, is actually written by Richard Dolan, and that is UFOs for the 21st Century Mind. It's a very thick book, but it covers so many different cases and theories and aspects to the phenomenon in a decent amount of detail. It's not crazy long, these stories, but just enough for you to get a grasp of these cases and things like this. So that's probably one of my favorite books that I would recommend to those that are just starting. Casper says, Christina, do you play a musical instrument? No. I wish. I'm musically declined. I like creating music on programs on the laptop. Love doing that. But playing with instruments, no. I just use software for that one. Deranged says, spicy ramen, yes or no? Heck yes. 10 out of 10. Delicious. I love all ramen. Michelle says, we'll be checking into the hospital in January to give birth to my son. Oh, congratulations, Michelle. That is fantastic news. Well, I and myself and so many others are wishing you the absolute best of luck and that everything goes smoothly, because that is so incredible to bring life back here. So, back here on Earth. Fibonacci says, in order, who do you think are the top 5 most reputable and important people in the UFO discussion? Whew, okay. That's a big question that I haven't thought about for quite some time. I would have to think about that one. Because I don't have any heroes. As soon as I entered the field, one of the first things I was told is don't have any heroes because you will be disappointed. I learned that one the hard way. Oh, yeah, I'm not going to share those personal stories with you today, but there have been a few people that I had admired that I wanted to speak to, and how incredibly disappointed I was with the way that they spoke to me or how they treated me. And I'm just like, I placed you up here and now you're all the way down here, buddy. So I don't have any heroes. So I need to think about that one. Like the most important. Dennis says, would you ever meditate to the song After the Gold Rush? I actually don't even know that song. I'm really sorry. If it's popular, I don't know it. But I'll look into it and maybe I will. Dope Nose says, who are your favorite space ambient musicians? Oh, Steve Roach. Like number 1. Love Steve Roach. Michael, I think his name is Michael Stearns. Love him as well. Fantastic. I actually have like playlist upon playlist on my YouTube channel that just plays all of these space ambient music that I listen to all day. That helps like keep me motivated when I'm doing research, helps put me to sleep as well. But there's a bunch of channels, so you can actually check out my fave channels in like the YouTube list at the bottom section, and there you'll find so many incredible space ambient artists on there. Okay, wow, we are speeding through these. All right, here we go. Logan, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, what is your definition of disclosure? For example, like for some, it's the president addressing the nation like an Independence Day, the movie. So disclosure is a term that everyone kind of has their own description of what it means and what it entails. So I think that disclosure is for the individual, like me. I think that when it comes to disclosure, it's an individual thing than for everyone, as in the statement or release of information. If it comes, who knows? But you and I, we are the disclosure. The government isn't going to release anything incredibly tantalizing. They're not, I don't think they're going to give us disclosure like the way that we want it. But it is through looking, keeping our eyes on the skies, having these conversations, speaking to others. That is what disclosure means to me. It's a very personal thing. And we are digging into these mysteries for disclosure. Imhotep has a question. Says, hey, Christina, besides Skinwalker Ranch, what other paranormal hotspots would you visit? Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts, all of Utah, like the entire state of Utah. And probably every single location that I've looked into on the show, Mysteries with a History, I'm probably going to go there as well. But one of my very first stops is going to be the entire state of Utah. Deranged, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, what do you love more, puck or ramen? Ramen. Sorry, Puck. Ramen, 10 out of 10. Never change. Logan, you're obviously a genius, Christina. Fringe is the best. Fringe is the best. I wouldn't call myself a genius, but thank you. I don't think so at all. But yes, Fringe, 10 out of 10. Brian says, are you still in contact with Lou Elizondo? Yes, I am. But he is taking a step back from all social media, doing interviews because he really is focusing on his book right now and doing work behind the scenes as well. But yeah, we act like friends sometimes, which is great. But he is so busy, and I don't expect anything less from him. Philip says, as a student of Buddhist tradition, when Dr. John Mack met with the Dalai Lama to talk about the phenomenon, what do you think they talked about? Probably, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't looked actually at that. Um, I'm not sure. I think it would have been more than just the UFO phenomenon. I think probably it would have been advice for him to persevere because he was being bogged down by a lot of people for doing this research. So I think it was maybe a little bit more for him to get motivation from the Dalai Lama, but I don't know. I actually didn't know they had an encounter. Jonacide says, with the RV, are you secretly hoping that the movie Paul happens, that you have an adventure with an adorable alien or a puckwudgie? How did you know, Jonacide? How did you know that those were my dreams? I'm seeing this in the chat, and I would like to mention when I said yak, I meant to chat like friends. I just really wanted to say that because I'm reading it here and yak as in chat. Hopefully, my slang didn't um, go over people's heads. So, yes, yak with friends, like friends with Lou Elizondo. So, excuse me. Cole says, have you watched the 1980s TV series V? I have. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I don't know all the details of that TV show, but yes, I have seen it and it was good. Okay. And Daniel says, have you taken any electronic devices to Skinwalker Ranch? Which ones? I have not been to Skinwalker Ranch yet. I am planning on going in the upcoming year. I haven't been yet. But when I bring equipment, when I go there, you will be the first to know because it'll all be on this channel. It's going to be so awesome. And Dan Sass says, if you were given similar resources funds as the Galileo project, what would you focus on? Hitting all of the UFO and paranormal hotspots in the United States. It wouldn't my goal wouldn't change. However, if I had that funding, I would have hopefully a bigger team, better equipment to conduct the research that I would like to do in those locations. But for the most part, instead of looking solely on the skies or in space, I would also like to look at what's happening already here on this land as well. Couch Crew says, what were your thoughts on Edgar Casey? True clairvoyance? We've spoken about Edgar Casey a few times on this channel, touched on it here and there. The most recent one was for the Unknown Zone, the Mysteries of the Sphinx. There were a lot of people that believed what Edgar Casey was saying was true. There are some things that he did state that people were able to prove, and others that he said that people couldn't prove, just the same as Baba Vanga, another very famous clairvoyant as well. Some things could be proven and being like, yes, absolutely. Others, not the case at all. So I think when you're a clairvoyant, you're kind of playing like a gamble here. Sometimes you'll be right and sometimes you won't. Is it fully a guessing game, or are they really tapping into something? I don't know. But there has been research conducted on these types of questions, and I would like to look more into that. Daniel says, "So cool. What genre of music do you like to compose?" Oh, check out my channel. At the very bottom, You'll see a bunch of interesting music. I like to do a lot of sleep ambient music. Probably like one of my favorites, but also like a type of space ambient music as well. But you can find that music kind of at the very beginning of the channel. Dave says, do you ever plan on releasing any more ambient space music? When given the time, I would like to release more, but right now, time's of the essence. I don't have too much of it, so I have not created any music recently. Diesel says, have you ever regretted going down the rabbit hole? Sorry, someone already asked something similar. I got here late. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. I don't regret it. I am so happy, excited, energized, and all of these types of things, jumping into these rabbit holes. It's a never-ending jump. I haven't finished. I don't think I'll ever finish. I have spoken to researchers that have been in the field for decades and they're still jumping rabbit holes. And it's not something that is even worth regretting. Regret, you can't change it. You can't change the past, and you can't change the future too much either. So I regret absolutely nothing, have it be jumping into rabbit holes or anything related to that or just in life in general. I regret nothing. Tyler says, what camera do you recommend for taking photos in the field? So right now I actually have the Canon 80D. Love it. I love Canon. It's like one of my favorite brands. But I think anything that's not a cell phone that has decent resolution is going to be a great start. One of the very first cameras I had was like from the 80s. It was an old guy, loved him to death. But it had great resolution photos at the time. So much better than a cell phone, right? When you zoom in, garbage. So, but we are but for like long distance, if you want to take long distance images, the Nikon Coolpix P1000, I think, digital camera is going to be your best bet. Okay, I'm going to be really speeding through these. We got a few minutes left. Let's do this. Okay. The Contagious Cajun. I really like that name. That is super cool. Will you visit the place where sorry, Barney and Betty Hill were taken? Absolutely. Definitely will. Tyler says, oh, we already answered that one. Okay. Mark says, have you seen the series The Peripheral? I have not. Never even heard of it, but it sounds interesting. I'm in. Maka says, and thank you so much, by the way. He says, Desert Island album of all time. I know it's hard. I'm going to copy and paste that. I'm going to look into that song. Sounds nice. Matt Smith just got here. Hi, Matt. And thank you so much for the super chat. I feel very lucky to give to your future plans. Stay you, be yourself. Most of all, love the journeys. Thank you. That is so kind. We got big plans here. Okay. So many of you I am so grateful that so many of you are so engaged in this AMA, asking some really brilliant questions and also being invested in this channel and in this journey as well. Thank you so much. Brian says, "Do you know how much your audience loves you?" I am so grateful. Actually, you answered what I just said, but thank you so much, everyone listening and watching and supporting. Art, act, react. Wow, say that 3 times fast. They say, "Hola, Cristina. Have you tried Neogura ramen?" No, but I would love to. I have not tried that. I'm gonna look that up. Logan, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, can we trust Richard Doty, former disinfo agent? Look, like the X-Files show, trust nobody. That's my answer. Thank you. Oh, okay. We're almost, we are going through these. Heck yeah. Oh, I lost my place. Sorry. Just give me a moment to find where I'm looking. Well, while I kind of clean that up, I do have some questions that were sent over to me. One of them being, 'cause there's some I did answer, so let me make sure I'm reading these correctly. One of them being from Mike Loftus, and he wrote, "If you had an opportunity to converse with the person from another civilization that was much older than ours, maybe 500 million to 100 million years, what would you want to talk about?" Answer this question first for those that are listening. What would you like to ask an incredibly more advanced civilization? Well, I think I'd like to ask them, did you find the answers that your species were looking for? Because here on Earth, we have three big questions. Why am I here? Right? Where did I come from? And where am I going? And then you can kind of go more into detail on what those questions actually mean. So it might sound kind of human centric to think that maybe all these other civilizations are asking the exact same questions. But if so, I would like to know the answers to those, as long as, is there a God? Is there a creator of everything? That's what I would like to know. Also, another question I got was, what's your favorite book or series growing up? So I grew up in the library. For those that don't know, I was kind of more of an somewhat antisocial kid as soon as I kind of like hit my teens. I was very social as a child, and that kind of changed over when I was about like 14, hitting high school. And I would always be in the library. I wouldn't often eat lunch out with groups of people. I would go in the library first thing in the morning, during lunch, and after school. My best friend was actually the librarian. Well, I used to read a lot of books. One of them that was probably one of my favorites was Maze Runner. Really fantastic book of all time for me. And for those that have read the series, let me know in the live chat. It is a fascinating story. As you can tell, talking so much, I'm beginning to stutter and jump over my words. Please forgive me on that. It happens with sometimes extreme emotions or kind of that like exhaustion rate as well. So if you hear me stuttering, just please forgive me on that. But I would like to state, everyone, if you can please smash that like button. It is huge for this channel in the eyes of the YouTube algorithm, so that we can reach more people to be interested in the mystery. So please smash that like button. Thank you. Happy says, and thank you so much for the super chat. It says, thoughts on Robert Monroe's work with astral projection, and have you ever experimented with it? Disregard it if too personal. I recall you did do an episode on OBEs in the past. I actually love his books. The Far Journeys, amazing. I have read them. We did a show on it. I have attempted to do astral projection, and I keep failing to have an experience because it just sounds so amazing, right? To get out of your body and travel the astral plane, like people mention. Yeah, I would love to do that, but every single time I try, I have not succeeded. If I did, I'll let you know. Logan says, and thank you so much for the super chat. It says, if aliens were to make documentaries about humans, what are some of the weird things they'd show? Probably the consistent war that takes place for sometimes very egoic and personal reasons that have no explanation whatsoever. Um, and probably like people eating like crazy ghost peppers that are like crying, right? And thinking that it's funny, but also like racism and politics as well. There's a lot of weird things that happen here on Earth. It would be a very interesting documentary for them to watch, I think, but I'm not too sure. Overall, our civilization is very cruel. It is very unforgiving, and I think it would be a pretty interesting type of documentary. Casper says, "Do you believe that MJ12 was or is real?" We did do 2 shows on MJ12 with Jimmy Church. For those that haven't seen it, go take a look at it. I'm on the fence with that. It's a very interesting documentation, alleged documentation um that goes into detail on like just how to look at UFO crashes, the people that were involved, and things like this. I think that there could be some truth to it, but overall, I am on the fence with that. Okay, we're gonna go overtime today. Mark says, "Have you seen the series Wednesday?" No, everyone is raving about it. Everyone is raving about it. That's all I'm seeing online. I haven't seen it, and when I get the time, maybe I'll look into it, but that kind of genre isn't 100% for me. I do like sci-fi more so than I don't know what gothic is that what the genre is called? I'm not sure, but I do love Tim Burton. He does make some fantastic films. One of my favorites being Corpse Bride. Loved that film. Paramahansa Yogananda? Absolutely. The amount of books I have, too many. No, not never too many. He is amazing. I do follow his work, his books, especially Autobiography of a Yogi. I do have it. For those that haven't read it and that are interested in looking into it, that's probably one of the best books to get started on is Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Hi, Thomas. Logan says, smash that like button. Do it. Thank you. Philip says, how often were you the first person to look at a book in 20 to 50 years? What this happened to me a lot in the library. So cards are no longer a thing where the previous people that looked that checked out the book. Everything's digital now. I did also work in the library as well in my high school, and that just wasn't the case. So I don't know. That information was not provided to me. The last one for today is by Contagious Cajun, and it says aliens would be like, watch this human blow his nose and then do it into and then put it into his pocket. Yeah, that's pretty weird if you're not human. That is kind of gross, actually, when you put it like that. But very interesting. I would like to say thank you for absolutely everyone for putting in questions, for supporting the channel, for liking the video, and for sharing it as well. The Unknown Zone is still being worked on, and it's going to be special, but will be up next week. For those I don't know, The Unknown Zone is a short 8 to 12-minute video on a very specific topic to anything mysterious. So on this channel, we do about 4 shows a week. No, we do 4 shows-ish a week. The Unknown Zone is every 2 weeks, but we do 3 shows, Shifting the Paradigm, Mysteries with a History, and Weekly Strange News every single week on this channel. So we cover a lot here. I want to say thank you to absolutely everyone. And Logan, thank you so much. For that, it says the strength of a civilization is not measured by its ability to fight wars, but rather by its ability to prevent them. This is so true, and a really beautiful quote as well. My first time, loved it. I'm so happy you did that. We only do AMAs once a year, so you came at a very rare time, and we did overtime too. Well, that is it for today's show. Be safe, and remember, keep your eyes on the skies.